Well, I am glad to be back with you this week on the Black Hole of Real Estate podcast. And it's occurred to me that a number of people are going through the same situation. I hear year after year the level of discomfort about helping to sell a property for the parents. Never an easy thing. And if the parents have been in the property for, let's say, a long time 10, 20, 50 years, um, prying them out of the home might feel uncomfortable, but necessary. And when we cross into that area, this internal strife and the decision making process get pretty muddied when you know the right thing to do is to help parents sell a home. And you realize they've been there a long time and they have memories and possessions and made decisions about the decor over time. Um, when those conversations all converge upon themselves, it could lead to some family matters, shall we call it, or arguments, or just painful conversations, and ones that we've been avoiding for years. And so I thought I'd talk about that. So the first thing is the decor. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Chances are decisions were made over a long period of time in a home, whether it's paint colors or cabinet colors or renovations that weren't done or upgrades that weren't necessary or things like that. And when the parents believe that the wallpaper in the kitchen is just fine and the old cabinets are perfect, they work fine, they open and close, they hold silverware and dishes and pots and pans, they don't need to be replaced, they don't need all those fancy things. And these fancy countertops that you can't put a hot pan on top of, you're afraid of scorching them. Well, it's those things. And we know that every home has to look like it's on TV in order to sell it. But there is a push and a trend towards upgrading and renovating, to something newer and perceivably better to the buying audience. That is always a hard conversation, and why wouldn't it be? You're basically telling somebody that their body of work, their artwork in their home doesn't measure up and it's not going to sell for top dollar, even if they have a corner lot and a big yard and they've spent so much time with the landscape and the flowers and the trees and the plants that they like. It just gets hard. So that conversation around what they need to do to sell the home, it's it's the first volley in an uncomfortable conversation. So there are times where the simple conversation solves the complex conversation, and the fact is that the home could have furniture in it or be empty. But let's just suppose they've moved to another place and they're going to sell it afterwards. They don't have to paint it, carpet it, change out floorings, and redo the kitchen. They could just sell it as is and let it be the opportunity for the next person to put their vision into it. Maybe not have to guess the right paint color, or will carpeting be better, or will vinyl flooring be better, or how about the hardwoods? Which would you want to do? Not every family has the resources to do all those renovations before selling, and you create a different conversation. We've been in this house for 40 years. We've always wanted to do the floors, and now we're going to do it for somebody else. And you see, that's hard too. The paperwork side of thing, hopefully they're savvy enough and done enough real estate transactions or knowledgeable enough that they can do all of their own paperwork. What I found is a lot of times they need a little hand holding, a little guidance. They probably don't remember how many papers were there, but the amount of paperwork they're seeing today probably feels like a lot more than what they had in the past. And chances are, when they signed that paperwork to buy the house a long time ago, they could possibly just been signing and not reading everything, or maybe they read everything, but it was so long ago it doesn't seem like it was that much. And so we need to take that into account. There's a never-ending amount of disclosures, and now you've got things to talk about video surveillance and the possibility of wire fraud if they're having it wired to the account. And why can't I just get a check and take it to the bank? I prefer a paper check. You see, these are things that will also creep into the conversation. So a lot of paperwork and a lot of money changing hands in unfamiliar ways. The vast majority of people do not get wire transfers on a regular basis. Maybe a direct deposit for paychecks or Social Security or things like that, but really, really big checks coming to wire is a little scary too. Um, you know, what to do with the accumulation of possessions, what's getting donated, what's going to the new place. If the new place is smaller, you know, that's going to affect what they can keep for the new home. And of course, those possessions are important to them, and they may want to leave them out of the goodness of their heart for the next person. It's super tough to tell that, geez, not that. They actually don't want your furniture. It's old, it's beat up, it's lived in. They got their own stuff. You see, you have these potholes and landmines all over the place as you go to do this, and I thought, wouldn't it be a benefit to just talk through this with you, even if you're already knowing this is going to happen, hearing it, well, it might just help. So their possessions are going to be important to them, not necessarily important to the next person, and their decor, much the same. The fact that they're going to be moving to a different area with perhaps a different distance to their favorite stores or restaurants, leaving some neighbors behind, and hey, in the old days, we had all these families, and I think as you go back and you look, a lot of the families that you knew perhaps growing up, or they really spent a lot of time with, well, maybe they've moved on too, or maybe they've passed on. You're going to conjure up some memories, and seeking the place for them to go to that's just as comfortable. Well, the fact that they've been there for all those years probably means it's not going to be a comfortable next landing. There'll be a comparable one. That might serve their needs. It might serve the family needs. Maybe there's some reason they're moving a little, maybe closer to their family for additional support when they've been independent for so many years. None of this has to be hard, but boy, it sure doesn't feel easy as you're going through that. And we've experienced this a number of times over the years where we're helping families through the moving process. And in the last couple of weeks, there's one particular one was what sounds like a simple move, but it's 5 hours away. And there's a lot of back and forth for traveling and trying to get the house ready to sell and get the possessions moved. And when the parents see the kids coming back, and the kids are getting there, and they're like, "Hey, you haven't only packed 3 boxes," like, and have been gone for a week. What are you doing? Well, they're sorting through memories and sorting through things. It's not going to necessarily happen in the time frame that you would like if you're traveling back and forth across distance. And then the fact that putting everything you own on a moving truck 5 hours away, and dropping it in a driveway in a pod, or having people bring in the new places, it's just on its face going to be uncomfortable. It's going to cause some pain and some anxiety along the way. But there's a system to it, and I've mentioned to you some of the building blocks. What does the next house look like? What is the way to move them? What possessions are staying or going? Do you do the renovation, or do you sell it as is? Those are things that you'll likely go back and forth on, in all honesty. Some things that you could do when the house is empty is to fill up the holes from all the pictures that came down off the walls, which are going to take a minute. And let's say there were smokers that have smoked their whole lives. There probably isn't an easy way to get the smell of smoke out of a house if that's going on. And that happens more often than you realize. So there are certain things you could do with paints, but if there's curtains or window treatments or carpeting in there, or any surfaces that might absorb that smoke in, it may be hard to get rid of that. And it may or may not be worth the expense of doing it. When a buyer walks in, there are some that may immediately dismiss the home if it smells like smoke. Others won't care. They may or may not walk out if the countertops aren't changed, or the walls aren't painted the right color. Those can be a little more easily overcome, but there's going to be a limit to how much the parents that are selling and moving are going to want to do, especially if they're in the mortgage process. They're probably not comfortable handing over so much financial information, let alone at the volume and pace that is asked for. There literally will probably not be a day during the process where they won't be asked for one more bank statement or one more income verification. Something they've handed over 3 times that hasn't changed, and yet they're wondering why do they keep asking for the same thing. So even in the best of moments and having your heart in the right place to help them along this process, they may not be ready to hear the valuable information you want to share with them or the help that you want to give. They may simply be exhausted from waking up in the morning thinking about it, going to bed at night thinking about it, maybe waking up in the middle of the night thinking about this move that they may or may not actually want to do. And for yourself, you're also thinking about it all the time because you realize they may not want to do this move. They may be forced into this type of move. And as we get to the holidays, you may find yourself in this situation. You may actually be going through it right now. And it just layers on top of it. Do we do one more holiday season in the house, or is this the time to cut the cord and get in the new home before the holiday and start a new tradition or a new memory? Yeah, I don't envy those situations for any of the families going through it. But it's a reality. And as we get into the end of the year times, some of you will be facing this or maybe going through it right now. And I thought it might be good to talk about it and get that piece out there. This really has nothing to do with interest rates or sales cycles or median home prices. It has to do with emotions and people moving for reasons that may not be of their choosing. Now, I'll allow some people moving for really good reasons or exciting reasons or upgrading or finally buying the beach house. But I would be remiss if I didn't have a conversation about the pain and the anxiety that's involved in this type of a sale. So I hope that gave you a little bit of something to think about, or maybe a little of a path on which to go. It may very well have raised additional questions, and those questions, I would ask you to drop them in the comments and allow us to answer those for you. I think it'll help us out in a lot of ways to get you to where you need to be safely, and maybe with some dignity along the way for you as well as the family. So I hope that helped, and I hope you enjoyed this piece about helping the parents move to a different spot. We'll catch up with you next week on the Black Hole of Real Estate.